Right, my name's Steven J Humphrey, independent candidate for Bournemouth East at the next general election when Gordon Brown finally gets off his arse and calls a general election at the discretion of the Queen. Right, I'm at home, but just finished reading Nick Clegg, leader of the Lib Dems, The Liberal Moment, and it says here, the time has come for a new alignment of progressive politics. In a sense, yes, I agree. For too long, we've been servants of the state. We've been slaves to the system, and for decades, if not centuries, we the people have not had the opportunity, like we had 1,000 years ago, to shape government, to determine what government does for us. And thirdly, we the people have basically forgotten what it is to be the people. The Americans, and to some extent the Chinese, and a whole raft of people, most of the 6 billion people on the planet, are disenfranchised. In the YouTube video that me and Gary did, 2 ideas for local democracy, we talked about 3 groups of people, where you've got the state, you've got corporate world, and you've got the people world. And like I said then, we the people pay everyone's wages, whether you're a corporate or government slave or government leader. Corporate leader, you pay the wages. Right, you go to work for 40 hours a week, you pay the wages, that pays for the human resources officer, that pays the boss's wage. And then the boss then finds clients for your products. In government, you park illegally, you get fined. You defraud a company of the state, you get fined and you go to jail. That's the 3 basic rules of society at the moment. Nick Clegg kind of put through Demos, his Liberal Democrat think tank, he put his ideas through and out into a pamphlet called The Liberal Moment, and put down his thoughts on a different approach to power, the progressive split, the second switch, etc. The economic crisis, the political crisis, the environmental crisis, the social crisis, the security crisis, and then he concluded, and if I go to the end and read his conclusion, he basically says that we the people don't have enough power, and that's the conclusion that he's come to and his party has come to, and that ties in with what me and Gary and other friends are talking about. Power has been hoarded in the wrong hands for too long in Britain. We are paying the price in the recession of today, the climate crisis, the collapse of our politics, our lack of security, and the ongoing injustice of social division and inequality. And then he goes on to say about progressive politics and so on. Right, well, essentially, Nick Clegg has hit it on the nail. He's saying that centrist policy of New Labour has, like I was saying to my neighbour earlier, is that New Labour is like a drain of a bath. It's like the plug hole in a bath, where you got all the water in the bath, us the people, the corporate world, the government officers, the civil servants, the whole world is like the bath water. Now what New Labour have done is that they've sucked all of that water, all of the lifeblood of the world, into the government's hands, the cabinet, the ministry. And so we the people don't have a say as much as a minister has the say. Now that contradicts my personal view that we are all created equal. Now there's some instruments in law that says that we are equal, regardless of whether you're the Queen, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Employment, the civil servant that stops your benefits, the job seekers, the doctors, the nurses, the plumbers. Every human being is equal in the eyes of the law. So if I punch you on the nose, that means I get the punishment of the law. Likewise, if I don't do anything wrong, the law says leave you alone. What New Labour have done, and to some extent Thatcher and John Major's government in the Tory years, they've basically said we the people can't be trusted. We have to be governed proactively. We have to be told what we can and cannot do. Despite the fact that 97% of us understand the difference between right and wrong. So there's a dividing line. Now, Nick Clegg wants to shift that dividing line more towards the liberal left, the progressive side of life, whereas New Labour want to push it more and more to the right, and take away liberties and rights and privileges that we the people understand are inherent. Just because 83,000 people are in jail at the moment doesn't mean to say that 61.4 million of us are criminals. And that's the fundamental difference between liberal politics and Labour politics, is that we the people can be trusted in the Liberal Democrat view, whereas in the Labour view we can't be trusted at all. So this explains why we have a nanny state, why, I mean, it's illegal to sell a grey squirrel. Why you want to sell a grey squirrel, I have no idea, when there's thousands of them out in the garden, right? But this is the fundamental difference. Now, Tories, Conservative Party under David Cameron, are stuck in the middle, centre-right politics. And if the evidence of the last 30 years is any guide, the Tories ain't gonna fix the problems that we're facing at the moment. And Nick Clegg addressed this in his Liberal Moment, this pamphlet. And I have no evidence to say that the Conservatives will be any different than New Labour is at the moment. Now, if I go by the evidence of my local council, which is a Tory-led council under Stephen McLaughlin, leader of the local Conservatives, new Tories are going to be worse than New Labour. And this is the fundamental problem we have with this three-party state, is that we can't prove that new Tories are going to be any better than New Labour. And if we go by the Thatcher years, John Major years, and then the Labour years of the last 30 years, there's no evidence to say that they're going to be any better than the New Labour. So that leaves you open to thinking that you should vote Lib Dems. And while Nick Clegg has written down his ideas and published them on Facebook and so on, I got no evidence to say that Lib Dems are going to be any better. So the problem is still there. And while the Lib Dems have come up with some really good ideas, it doesn't, for me, answer the core principle, fundamental flaw with modern politics in Britain and Europe and the world, is that the ongoing injustice, as Nick Clegg says in his pamphlet, is still there. And even though the Lib Dems have come up with some good ideas, and I'll pause this in a minute and carry on. In fact, I'll pause it now and go and